I know we've talked about this quite a bit, about the strange times that we are living in, and it's just weird. I mean, it's just weird. And it just seems like it keeps getting weirder and weirder the farther we go into this season. And how many believes we've moved into a new season of life here? I mean, we are entering into, the seasons have changed. And this season is taking on a climate. And the climate's not completely formed yet, and it's not up to full force yet, and it's not, gusting like it's probably going to gust, but we have stepped out of a season and stepped into a season. And it's just weird. It's different. It's not what we're used to. It's a season that I don't remember really seeing before. I mean, you can bring me into fall, and I kind of know what to expect. Illinois is a little weird with that, too. Or spring, and you kind of know what to expect. This is a season I don't know what's going to happen. But within us, in this unexpected, not knowing what to expect, I don't know, in me, it creates a sense of urgency. And I remember we were with the girls, and we were in Branson, Missouri, and this last summer when they started shutting everything down. And they just started shutting everything down and saying, well, you can't go here, you can't go there. And everybody remember what that was like? Was that a weird feeling? Yeah. All that mandatory quarantining and staying at home, and all the businesses and stuff were getting shut down. And you know what? My wife is like the calmest person on the planet, and I'm not. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to the grocery store. But we're in Missouri, we're 6 or 7 hours from home. Like, okay, we'll just pack all the groceries in the back of the van, but we'll have them. And I'm just like, I'm not like in a total panic, but I'm not worried about the grocery budget. I'm not worried about Dave Ramsey or anybody else. I'm going to get as many groceries in the van as I can get in there. And it's like, there was a lot of stuff that was already gone, but I have a 6-year supply of black beans at my house. Right? And bags of rice, and I mean, I can't even remember what all the stuff I bought, but I just remember Suzanne just kept looking at me like, really? Like all this stuff is... But you know what? There was a sense of urgency in the unexpectancy of what was coming. I didn't know exactly what I was going to need, but I knew I didn't want to be without. And evidently a lot of other people felt the same way, because stuff just started disappearing like crazy. And I might be like totally ignorant and dim and not very smart, but I still don't understand why we were going to think we were needing that much more toilet paper. I mean, what triggered like, oh my goodness, we're going to need a lot more toilet paper? I never did get that. But it didn't really matter. But that urgency brought about action. And you know what? Even though I didn't think I was going to need any more, I was trying to grab as much as I could too. Right? I couldn't explain it. It didn't make sense to me. But you know what? If there's some sitting there, I'm going to grab it. So this sense of urgency for preparation as we were moving into this season. And I feel like the words that God has for us still today is be prepared. A preparation not just of the things we do, logistically on the outside, and not even the things we do corporately as a church, although those are very important, and the reaching and the harvesting for souls. But God says you need to prepare your heart for the things that are to come. Our lives need to be set in order, and we need to be aligned with God, and we need to be in a place where we're hearing God. And I go through these scenarios in my head because I just sketch out sometimes, and I'm like a protector and a provider and a hunter and a gatherer and all that other stuff, and I get these visions in my head of 10 people fighting over a turkey leg and all this other stuff. And I think about, okay, what do I need to do logistically to prepare for my family? And, what should I do monetarily? And where should this be and that be? And, what God says? You don't even need to prepare. Just get used to hearing my voice. Just get used to trusting the sound of my voice. And that will prepare you. That will walk you through the days to come. You know, seasons tend to become more extreme in whatever the condition is the longer they go. And I believe we're going to see that in this season. And so we have to refine our loads. We have to refine what we're packing. We have to refine the things that we bring into our lives and prioritize and sort through and become efficient travelers as we go through this journey that we have ahead of us. You know, we don't have any convenience for dead weight. And we tend to go on some backpacking trips and stuff, and Pastor Cotton and I just got back from a backpacking trip, and you know, we have this bad habit of calling each other and asking each other how much our backpacks weigh. And it's like, he'll call, like this time he called, he said, yeah, my backpack, and this is like everything you're going to need for like 4 or 5 days, my backpack only weighs like 22 pounds. And I was feeling good about mine weighing 24 pounds, till I found out his only weighed 22. Then I'm trying to figure out, well, what can I get rid of? Because, now 24 sounds heavy, and I get rid of some Cliff Bars, because those thinking things are heavy.
Right.
And I get rid of this, and I get rid of that, and all this other stuff. But then I got rid of a bunch of stuff, and I started thinking, well, man, I don't want to be hungry. So I started putting some stuff back in. I'm like, I'll just not worry about it and carry the extra weight. Because I had this fear of not having enough. I wanted to be prepared. I didn't want to get in a spot, because you can't like call and order pizza on the side of a mountain. If you didn't carry it in there with you, you're not going to find it in that place or in that season where you're at. And we're living in that time. We better get packed up and know what we're going to need. We better hear the voice of God. And we better be carrying with us at all times everything we're going to need for this season. And not only the climate that we're walking in right now, but the climate that we're walking into. Does that make sense? God says, be prepared. Have your heart prepared. Have your home prepared. Have your life prepared. 2 Timothy 3, and we're going to be hearing these scriptures a lot. Verse number 1 through 5. This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers. We have so many examples of every single one of these. Pride, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. You know, like this, when did you ever think you're going to see people standing out on the street burning Bibles? Just burning Bibles. Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. This is a tough world to live in and be good and not be despised. Because I'm not even talking about a puffed up good, not even talking about like, I think I'm good, but the Bible says just being good. You know what? Just being good and trying to live a good life and stand for something. People despise you for that now. For just trying to raise your kids in a healthy home and in a godly home and do some godly things and just be good. We're being despised for being good. Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Man, is that ever true? And having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. You know what? We've got so much, and this might come across judgmental, but we have so much stuff, in my opinion, and if I'm totally wrong, I've had people that I'm an authority to that can straighten this out. There's a lot of stuff being put out there that's called preaching, and it's not preaching. And you know, I like recovery teaching. I mean, I do that kind of stuff and everything. But we know we've got some stuff that's going out there that they might as well be talking about a good casserole recipe. Right? And just going around and just a lot of self-help and a lot of positive talk and a lot of, you know, all this. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Walking around just being cool and looking cool, and everybody saying, man, he's cool. But you know what? I need preaching like these guys preach that's going to get my heart ready and prepared for the coming of the Lord and the season that we're walking into. The Bible talks about having itching ears and heaping unto themselves those teachers that will scratch those ears, and there's not going to be a good effect of that. You know what? It's just human nature to want our ears scratched. Sometimes I need smacked upside the head instead of my ears scratched. Somebody knows me. Right, Jeremy? We need that sometimes. But there's a lot of preaching that's going forth or speaking that's going forth that has a form of godliness to it, but it's denying the power. And the Bible gives us instruction for that. Turn away from it. You know? Just turn away from it. Which means I'm not going to like it and I'm not going to share it. It says turn away from it. Man, that got really quiet right there. Matthew 24, 36 through 44. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. It was for all those that weren't prepared. By the time it came, it was too late. So they didn't have time to get prepared. That time, even before the judgment came, because God shut the door to the ark days before it ever started to rain, there was a time for preparation that was preceding to the time of God's judgment. And then there was a time that it was too late to prepare. Then shall two be in the field, and one taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, one shall be taken the other left. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready. That means prepared. Everybody say prepared. Be ye also ready, for such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Ready. To be ready is to be prepared. You see, God's not surprised by any of this craziness. And 3 days from now, God's not going to be surprised by it. And 3 months from now, God's not going to be surprised by it. You know why? God's only not in the know about it. God's not just knowing that it's coming. God doesn't just have the inside information that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. God's already prepared. He already knows what He's going to do. He already knows how it's going to turn out. And that same God that knows all of that, that's already standing in next year and the next decade and everything else, is the God that I need to be connecting to every single day so that my heart can be prepared for what's happening next. You know what would be the best thing for me to quench the fear that tries to grip me? Is to get every morning with the God that's already in the tomorrow and the next day. The God that knew all of this was going to happen, and the God that's prepared to handle it when it does. He speaks peace without ever telling you what the plan is. And I keep praying for God to show me the plan. And God just says, trust me. I'm going to get prepared. That's how I prepare my heart for what's coming next. When it all blows up, it's going to be a little too late to prepare my heart for that. I got to have that relationship now. You see, God's got a really good track record of being prepared. A really good track, and He's got a really good track record of keeping His people prepared. You read through the Scripture, and it's so full of enemies that are coming against the people of God, and kings that are rising up against godly people, and all the things that are coming against God and His people, and God's always a step ahead of them. And it doesn't even happen unless God says it's okay. And then God does prepare. God passes on the information, God passes on the plan, and God carries out His plan with excellence. God has a great example of being prepared. It didn't surprise God when Adam and Eve sinned. God already had a plan. He had a lamb that was slain before the foundation of the world. Before the foundation of the world was even laid, before this world ever even started, God already had the plan for sin in place. You think God ain't got a plan for this craziness we're seeing going on? He's got the plan. And our peace and our confidence comes from, number one, knowing that He's got the plan and His plans don't fail. And I'm going to listen to God because you know what? Evidently, I'm part of the plan. Do you think God's surprised that you're here? Hebrews 11:7. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet. There's things we haven't seen yet. Does anybody believe that? There's things we haven't seen yet. But Noah was warned of those things. Noah was moved with fear. That movement, that urgency that Noah had, because God began to speak with him in that God connection, it moved Noah. And it moved Noah in the area of preparation and fulfilling God's plan. He enacted the plan that God had for deliverance, and he worked that plan. It says, and yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness of faith. You see, we all know it hadn't rained yet, right? Noah was putting a lot of preparation by faith. Noah was putting a lot of preparation to make provision for a weather condition that had never existed before. A climatic condition that had never ever shown up before. And God said, look, and because he was connected to God, and because that he spoke with God and God spoke with him, he wasn't surprised by it. I don't think he knew how all that was going to turn out. He just knew God told him to build a boat. That's all he knew. And it moved him to carry out that plan. And you know what? And I've talked about this before, but for a long time, I think it took him over 100 years to build that boat. For a long time, it didn't make sense to anybody. And you know what? He probably had a million opportunities just to bag it up and quit. I am sick of going to Home Depot. This is crazy. It hasn't rained. I'm done. Let's say if he, in year 47, he just said, you know what, this is crazy. I've been to Home Depot 742 times, and I'm sick of going to Home Depot, and it hasn't rained. I'm just done. I'm bagging it. This doesn't make sense. You know, all my neighbors say this doesn't make sense. I see some other people, they ain't building no arks. They're okay. They're fine. I'm just stinking done. And you know what? That decision would have looked okay for about 53 years. For about 53 years, it would have looked like an okay decision. But the day it starts raining, you ain't got enough time to build 53 years worth of ark. He had better been prepared. You know, I had somebody give me the real scientific reason about why a boat floats, but I can't remember what it was. But basically, it's because the boat displaces the water and it rises above it. It displaces the water because it's impermeable. And if the boat gets a hole in it and the water comes inside the boat and it's no longer displacing the water, guess what? Blop, 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 blop. Bingo, it sinks. It's that separation. It's that boundary. It's that separation of that water that causes the boat to float. And you know, this isn't the time, this for sure, not like there's ever a good time, but this isn't the time to walk away from the things that's been making God's boat float for a long time. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, 17 and 18. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. And I will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Almighty. You know, there's a lot of people that have started taking off the preparation that God has been laying for the hours that we're walking into right now. For a long, long time, there's been people saying, well, I don't need this, and I don't need that. And you know, because God's preparation and separation insulates us. You know, when I put on a puffy jacket, you know, like a puffy goose down jacket, and it's cold out, and I put that jacket on, you know, I'm doing that because I know I have to walk through whatever that climate is and not have it impact me. It doesn't change the climate, it just insulates me from those extreme conditions on the outside. You know, and God has designed, and I believe this, and I believe this, and to a lot of us, holiness and separation from the world, it's made sense to me for a long time. It's made sense to me for a long time. I've seen the benefits of it. I'm not doing this so I can preach here. I don't live a lifestyle separated from the world so I can carry a preacher's card. I don't think I've seen my card for years. You know why I live this way? You know why I'm building my ark the way I'm building my ark? Is because it makes sense to me. And because Noah had been connected with God, it did not make sense anywhere else, but it was making sense to him because he trusted God and he believed God, and he believed God was warning him of things to come. And I want to tell you something. Everybody within the sound of my voice, I hope they hear me. You know what? Living like this has made sense to me for a long time, but there's a lot of people that gave up on it because it didn't make sense to them anymore. Let me tell you something. There's a day coming when it'll start making sense to them again. And I pray to God they have time to build that ark. Because this climate is changing. And it's changing rapidly. Too many people have shed things. Oh, it's too uncomfortable. Makes me a little uncomfortable, Pastor. I got to get free. We'll frolic around in it for a while, but you better get ready, because this climate's changing rapidly. And there are going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, that will die of exposure before the Lord ever even comes back. You know, there's a principle of distance that insulates. I mean, when you condense things down, they don't insulate anymore. They just don't. I mean, why do you think they have double pane windows? Because there's a space between there that insulates the window and makes it warmer on the outside, or, makes the climate difference obtainable, because there's distance between the panes of glass. If you take, we have sleeping bags that are big, puffy sleeping bags with goose down in them and stuff like that. Well, the other night at the men's camp out, I was sleeping in a hammock. And I got this 10-degree, it's supposed to keep you warm down to 10 degrees. And it was like in the 50s or something the other night. And I just throw that, I had an insulating pad underneath me that's supposed to insulate. I got uncomfortable with it. I threw it out and laid it on the ground. And I just laid in that hammock with my 10-degree bag, because I thought, surely I'm going to be warm. I got a 10-degree bag, and it's 50-some degrees out. Well, I woke up in the middle of the night, my whole back was cold. Why? Because my weight was squishing down and compressing the down that was in that sleeping bag, and it was compressed down to nothing, and it had no separation. There was zero insulating value to it. What I'm trying to say is, we can't walk parallel to the world, and we can't walk parallel and condense down the distance between the church and the world and expect to be insulated from the effects of the world. We won't be insulated from the climate. We need to hear the voice of God and be warned. Exodus 15:2, the Lord is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him a habitation. I have to prepare a place for God to live in my house and in my heart. In 2 Chronicles, we read about Rehoboam, and the Bible says that he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. We prepare our hearts to hear from God. Talking about Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles 19, at a time when he was doing good. This is the words that came to Jehoshaphat. Nevertheless, there are good things found in thee, in that thou hast taken away the groves out of the land, and hast prepared thine heart to seek God. There are preparations that we make in our heart, preparations to yield to God. And we can't expect God to speak to us, and we can't expect to hear God if our hearts aren't going to yield to what God says. My carnal heart can't hear God. It can't hear God. But a submissive heart of flesh that God gives me can hear him. John 14, verse number 1. Let not your heart be troubled. I don't want to be troubled. I don't like being troubled. Does anybody like being troubled? I get fidgety when I'm troubled. I get irritable when I'm troubled. I don't want to be troubled. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God? Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare. See, God's always preparing. He's always preparing. He's prepared for what happened then. He's prepared for what's happening now. He's got preparations made for us right here. And He's also already been over there, and He's prepared a place where we're going to end up when it's all over with. Go and prepare a place for you. I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. I stink at a lot of things, but I really stink at the unexpected. You know, when I get something all planned out a certain way and think it's going to go a certain way, or get my sights set on something or whatever, and then all of a sudden life or whatever doesn't look like it's heading that way, I get whacked out. Does anybody else get whacked out? I hope there's more people here than that, because I'm feeling worse than what I thought I would. Please, even if you don't, could you please raise your hand? How many get whacked out when life doesn't head down the path you think it's going to? God bless you. It throws me off. It's like it kind of whacks me out. And we say these things, I say these things a lot, but I don't believe them as much as I should. Is that if I can get my life into God's hand, no matter what I'm going through, is part of God's plan. He's able to do that. Whatever's going on, God says, okay. God isn't all excited and bent out of shape. It's just like, yeah. And I'm totally whacked out. You know, and we're talking about being prepared. God's prepared. The plan's prepared. Our life's prepared. And just because it doesn't line up with what we think it's supposed to look like, or what it should look like, or how comfortable it's supposed to be, God has designed it to get us where we need to go. And I've preached about Jonah before, but you know, Jonah had an issue with God, ended up running away from God, ended up in a big giant boat with a bunch of other people. They had a big storm. Jonah goes, I'm your problem. And he says, throw me overboard. And at the point that they threw him overboard, Jonah didn't know God had a fish prepared. The Bible literally says that God prepared a fish. God prepared a fish? It makes it sound like smoked salmon or something. God prepared a fish. No, God prepared this fish. I mean, have you ever seen a fish's brain? It's about that stinking big. But somehow or another, God prepared that fish to swallow up Jonah and take him wherever he needed to go. At the point that Jonah threw his life overboard and lost his life, then God's preparation was able to get a hold of his life and take him where he needed to go. But it wasn't until he got his life thrown overboard. Now, this is the thing I'm learning, Jordy, and this might be really obvious to a smart guy like you, but it wasn't real obvious to me. Because I saw the fish like calling Uber. I saw the fish like Uber. Like, I need to get to Nineveh, so God prepared this cool transportation for me to Uber to Nineveh. But see, Jonah didn't just have a logistical problem about where he needed to be bodily. Jonah's heart needed to be moved along the way. And in the wisdom and the knowledge of God, God somehow knew that however long it took to get to Nineveh, that period of time inside the belly of a fish was going to be good enough to prepare his heart for what he was going to have to do in Nineveh. And my whole point of the story is, you know what? Your life, my life might not be a bed of roses all the time. We might face some scary things. We might have some things that are unexpected. We may have some things on the horizon we don't understand, that we don't have sorted out. But you know what? If my life is in his hands, if I've thrown my plans overboard, it is a fish that God has prepared to get me where I need to go. And if I will let God, what do you think the conditions were like inside of a fish? They stunk. You ever cleaned a fish before? They stink inside. God could have had some dolphins come by and he could have grabbed the fin, and Jonah could have done this all the way to Nineveh. Or he could have rode two of them like they do at SeaWorld. But no, God put him on the inside of a stinky fish to get him to Nineveh. Why? Because as he was transporting him there, God was changing his heart. But I got to hear him. God has all the preparation made. We don't have to be afraid. We don't have to be spooked out. God's talking to your leadership. God's using his leadership to talk to you and to me. But you know what? That's not good enough. We got to get this flesh put aside, and we've got to hear God ourselves. In all honesty, his preaching doesn't usually calm me down. His preaching really doesn't do a whole lot to calm me. It's when I take their preaching and I get in the closet with God and let God minister to my heart with that preaching, that's when the calm comes. That just seems like cheerleading to me if it's not applied to my heart. I got to hear God.